Hey everybody, Saaz here. Welcome to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the world of hacking protocols, the secret handshake of the digital age. We're talking about the good, the bad, and the ethically ambiguous. So, what exactly are hacking protocols? Think of them as the blueprints, the languages, the secret codes that make digital communication possible. From your online banking to your late-night Netflix binging, it all boils down to these protocols working behind the scenes. In this video, we're going to break down the basics, explore some infamous hacking protocols, and even show you the tools of the trade. But before we fire up Kali Linux and start poking around, remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Let's get started. All right, let's break down the basics. What exactly are hacking protocols? In the simplest terms, they're sets of rules or procedures that govern how data is transmitted and received over a network. Think of it like this. You wouldn't just walk up to someone's door and start yelling random words at them, right? You'd use language, grammar, social cues, a protocol to communicate effectively. Hacking protocols are kind of like that, but for computers. They define how devices identify themselves, how data is formatted and encrypted, and how errors are handled. Now, when it comes to hacking, understanding these protocols is key. Why? Because it allows you to see the weaknesses, the vulnerabilities, the loopholes in these systems. Think of it like finding a secret backdoor in a seemingly secure building. Once you know the layout, the security protocols, the weak points, you can exploit them to gain access. That's what ethical hackers do. They use their knowledge of these protocols to find vulnerabilities and fix them before the bad guys can exploit them. But here's the thing. Just like any tool, hacking protocols can be used for good or evil. So buckle up, because we're about to dive into the world of hacking protocols where we'll uncover the secrets, the vulnerabilities, and the sheer power that these digital languages hold. All right, enough with the theory. Let's talk about some real-world hacking protocols, the kind that make headlines and keep security professionals up at night. First up, we've got the classics, the oldies but goodies like TCP/IP. This is the backbone of the internet, the protocol that makes it all possible. But guess what? It's also got its fair share of vulnerabilities. Then there's SQL injection, a technique that exploits vulnerabilities in web applications to gain access to databases. It's like sneaking in through a back door, except the back door is a poorly written line of code. And we can't forget about cross-site scripting, or XSS, which allows attackers to inject malicious scripts into websites, essentially turning the website itself into a weapon. Now, these are just a few examples, and we'll be covering many more throughout this video. By understanding how these protocols work and how they can be exploited, you're better equipped to protect yourself and your data. Use this knowledge responsibly, and always remember the ethical implications of your actions. All right, you're probably itching to get your hands dirty and start hacking, right? Well, before you do, you're going to need the right tools for the job. And no, I'm not talking about a crowbar and a ski mask. We're talking about software, specifically operating systems and tools designed for ethical hacking and penetration testing. First up, you've got Kali Linux. This bad boy is the go-to operating system for security professionals and ethical hackers worldwide. It comes preloaded with a massive suite of tools for everything from network scanning to password cracking. Think of it like a digital Swiss Army knife for hacking. Then there's Parrot OS, another popular choice that offers a similar set of tools but with a slightly different focus. And if you're looking for something a little more lightweight, there's always BlackArch Linux, which boasts an even larger repository of tools. But it's not just about the operating system. You'll also need specific tools for different tasks, like Nmap for network scanning, Wireshark for packet sniffing, and Metasploit for penetration testing. Always use them responsibly and ethically. Chapter 4, Don't Be a Jerk. Okay, so we've talked about the basics of hacking protocols, explored some infamous examples, and even covered the tools of the trade. But before we go any further, we need to address the elephant in the room: ethics. Because here's the thing, hacking, even when done with good intentions, can have unintended consequences. Think of it like this. Let's say you're a well-intentioned but slightly clumsy friend who's trying to fix a leaky faucet at your buddy's house. You think you're being helpful, but you end up flooding the bathroom and causing thousands of dollars worth of damage. Hacking can be kind of like that. Even if you're just testing a system's security, you could accidentally bring down a website, expose sensitive data, or even disrupt critical infrastructure. Always get permission before hacking into any system, even if you think it's for their own good. Use your skills ethically and legally, and never exploit vulnerabilities for personal gain. Chapter 5. Don't blow up your computer. Alright, before we get into the nitty-gritty of hacking protocols, let's talk about safety. Because here's the thing, hacking can be risky business, especially if you don't know what you're doing. And the last thing you want is to fry your motherboard or, worse, end up on some government watch list. So, rule number 1, never hack on your main computer. Seriously, don't do it. Set up a dedicated machine, a virtual machine, anything but your primary device. That way, if something goes wrong, and it might, you won't lose all your precious data. Next, back up everything, I mean everything. Your photos, your documents, your browser bookmarks, the whole 9 yards. Because you never know when a hacking experiment might go sideways and take your data with it. And for the love of all that is holy, don't click on suspicious links. Chapter 6, your hacking ABCs. Alright, let's dive into the language of hacking. Because if you want to walk the walk, you gotta talk the talk. First up, we've got exploit. This isn't some adrenaline-fueled action sequence, it's a piece of code that takes advantage of a vulnerability. Think of it like a skeleton key for the digital world. Then there's payload. This is the actual malicious code that an attacker wants to execute on your system. It's the nasty surprise hidden inside the Trojan horse. And speaking of Trojan horses, that's another term you'll hear a lot. It's a type of malware that disguises itself as legitimate software to trick you into installing it. And finally, we've got social engineering. This isn't about building bridges. It's about manipulating people into giving up sensitive information. Chapter 7. Level up your hacking game. Alright, you've mastered the basics. Now it's time to level up your hacking game. First up, embrace the command line. I know, it looks scary, but trust me, it's your best friend. It gives you more control, more flexibility, and let's be honest, it makes you look like a total badass. Next, learn to code. Seriously, if you want to be a true hacker, you need to understand how software works at its core. Python is a great place to start. It's relatively easy to learn and incredibly versatile. And while you're at it, get familiar with different operating systems. Linux is a must-have, but don't neglect Windows and Mac OS. The more systems you understand, the wider your hacking playground becomes. And finally, never stop learning. The world of hacking is constantly evolving, so you need to stay ahead of the curve. Chapter 8. Hacking in action. Alright, let's bring all of this together with a real-world example. Let's say you're a security consultant hired to test the security of a company's network. First, you do your reconnaissance, gathering information about their systems, their employees, their online presence, anything that could give you a clue about potential vulnerabilities. Then you might use a tool like Nmap to scan their network, looking for open ports, running services, and other potential entry points. Once you've identified a target, you could try a few different attack vectors, like exploiting a vulnerability in their web application, or using social engineering to trick an employee into giving up their credentials. If successful, you'd gain access to their system, but instead of causing any real damage, you'd document your findings and provide recommendations for improving their security posture. Outrow until next time. So, there you have it, a crash course in hacking protocols. We've covered a lot of ground from the basics to some pretty advanced concepts, but the most important thing to remember is that knowledge is power, and with great power comes great responsibility. Use what you've learned today to protect yourself, protect your data, and maybe even make the digital world a slightly safer place. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future hacking adventures. See you in the next one.